We're still hopeful for next year, and we got to get into what we've been seeing so far in regards to this offseason for the Phoenix Suns. I mean, less than 48 hours after that Game 6 loss on May 13th, Monty Williams is fired. Call Mat Ishbia the 48-hour man, dude. I mean, like, he comes in, gets the team, pulls the trigger less than 48 hours for Kevin Durant. After a playoff exit, 48 hours, there goes Monty Williams. Wojnarowski, he said new owner Mat Ishbia made the decision to fire Williams, who has been the winningest coach in the NBA since 2021. The Suns have a starry but top-heavy roster with little cap flexibility this summer, and the Suns will be competing in the coaching marketplace with Milwaukee and Toronto. So, Chris, I just got to ask you right off the bat, how are you feeling about the Suns letting Monty Williams go?
Yeah, man, so much to unpack there. My initial reaction was good riddance. I wasn't a fan of Monty Williams. I've been very critical of him. And of course, I know he was winning, had a lot of wins. I think what you say, most wins since 2021 for any head coach. So, I mean, that's an accomplishment in itself. Obviously took us to the mountaintop, had us close to tasting a championship. And you can't put all the blame on the coach, right? But if you watched our recaps and you've watched any of our basketball takes, you've seen me criticize Monty Williams' inability to take timeouts at the appropriate times, not challenging calls that should be challenged, but then turning around and challenging calls that shouldn't be challenged, in my opinion. And also just the rotation of guys, trusting his guys for too long, whether it's Abdul Nader or Landry Shamet. It seems to happen every year where some guy gets him a goodie basket or something, and he really latches onto him and trusts them and gives him a little bit longer of a leash than I think another head coach would have had. So, I mean, now that I've had time to digest it a little bit, and I could be totally wrong here, but I feel like Monty was probably a great player coach in a sense that in practices, in their personal lives, he was a great guy, a great mentor, and a good coach to these guys. But when it came down to game time and needing to win games, he didn't always know how to coach these guys to put them in positions to be successful. And honestly, that might start a little bit with the game plan of it all. I mean, we even saw especially in the Nuggets series, just a lot of one-on-one basketball. And I know that kind of is Devin Booker and Kevin Durant's style, but at the end of the day, I feel like you got to scheme a little bit more, especially when you're going up against the #1 seed and potentially the best team in the West, or I think maybe at this point, undoubtedly the best team in the West, as they're now up 2-0 on the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. I mean, if we were going to get eliminated by a team, I'm glad, I guess, it was the Nuggets and not the Clippers. That would have been a harder sell, but I was a little bit surprised about the swift firing of Monty Williams. I think Ishbia knows basketball a little more than the Suns' previous owner, Robert Sarver. Of course, Ishbia played at Michigan State. He has a lot of connections in the league and knows a lot of basketball guys. And I find it hard to imagine that he made this decision without consulting anybody else. I'm sure he talked to some other people around him and maybe even something he had been thinking about for a while. Obviously, you're not going to fire a head coach to a playoff bound team. I mean, I wouldn't anyway. And you especially weren't going to fire him once the playoffs started. But Ishbia might have, been thinking a while ago, like, hey, unless we win a championship or bust, if we don't win a championship or make it to the finals, then this guy's got to go. And to get bounced out in the second round, I think just made that decision a whole lot easier for him. So I'm okay with it. I'm ready to move on from Monty. I wish him all the best. I'm sure he'll get another chance somewhere else and probably end up winning a championship somewhere else, because that's just how it goes, right?
That's the curse of Arizona sports. But, I echo a lot of the same sentiments that you have, Chris. Sometimes Monty struggled with the X's and O's down the stretch, and his inability to really make any adjustments throughout games. It did seem like he did a little bit better, specifically within that first series against the Clippers. And then we just were outgunned. Let's just be honest here, folks. We were outgunned. Denver Nuggets are just a well-oiled machine right now. And in one of our last recaps, I had basically said they had the entire season to flesh out all of their bad tidings and find out what kind of team they were going to be going into the playoffs. And they had solidified that #1 seed early. So we did see a lot of their guys sitting, but when you have the entire season to work together and find out what is really going to put you in a successful place, you see what happens. And oh, I'm right there with you. I wish him the best. It is just a tough situation, specifically because of the new ownership change with Mat Ishbia. You also have to think about what happened before Ishbia came in with the allegations with Robert Sarver and just the general stench that was around the organization. And I don't know. I mean, maybe it was an easy decision for Mat Ishbia to move forward and basically say, you know what, we're still trying to set the precedence for this franchise. We're trying to put us in a positive light. And I'm not saying that Monty Williams ever had truly a negative light in terms of, you know, national presence or, you know, the people that he interacted with. Like you said, I know he was a great players coach, but, you know, Mat Ishbia is taking his $4 billion investment and pushing it into the way that he wants to. And Monty Williams just wasn't that guy. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of other pieces, including players this offseason, moving around as well, because they're not part of the culture that he wants to set forward. But, man, imagine if we lost to the Clippers. It would have been less than 24 hours before Monty Williams was fired.
He might not even have been let on the team playing. They might have just left him at Staples, or what is it, crypto.com arena now? It'll always be Staples Center.
It's always going to be Staples Center. Yep, exactly. It's just the same way as Chase Field. I still always think of it as Bank One Ballpark.
Oh, yeah.
It'll always be the Bob to me. But, you know, now we're seeing that reports are basically stating that Ishbia has taken over basketball operations and almost taken it away from James Jones. And we've started to see some more conversations in regards to that. But I want to dive into kind of the initial things that we've been hearing in regards to the Suns coaching vacancy and where this team is looking to head possibly. And if you've been tapped in with this team, you know there's probably been 3 guys at the top of the list that we've been hearing. Mike Budenholzer from the Milwaukee Bucks is on that list. Nick Nurse, who was with the Toronto Raptors, was also on that list. And the heavy hitter that people are really, really excited about and crossing their fingers is the Clippers' Ty Lue. Now, obviously, we've already heard that Frank Lawrence from the Clippers has said, we want to bring Ty back. And I believe that Ty Lue met with the front office this week to talk about his future and possible extension. And with the trade of Kevin Durant, the Suns have handcuffed themselves in regards to any kind of draft capital that they can really trade away to possibly get a head coach who is still under contract. So that would be something that would have to get done. But before we dive into some of these other names, Chris, out of those 3, who would you like to see become the Phoenix Suns head coach?
Man, I think I'm with the people. If I had my choice and could pick, it would be Ty Lue. Man, say what you will about him, but he took Russell Westbrook, who seemed to be on his way out of the league, looking old, looking like he didn't belong here anymore, to making him a crucial part of that Clippers team and a reason they fought so hard. It just shows that he's a smart basketball guy. He was a former player, so he has that going for him where he can understand the players' perspectives. And I just think, like I said, I think he's a really smart guy. He won a championship with the Cavaliers and had multiple finals appearances with them, I believe 2 or 3. So he has the experience, he has the knowledge. It's just on paper, I think, a perfect fit. My second choice, probably Nick Nurse. It doesn't seem like the Suns are spoiled for options right now, unfortunately. Absolutely not Mike Budenholzer, though. Absolutely not.
I know a lot of people have been saying, if you bring in Mike Budenholzer, you're going to get the same kind of reactions from Suns fans for the negative aspects of Monty Williams. He's going to struggle to figure out when to take timeouts to stop runs. He's going to struggle to find out what kind of rotations are the right fits. So I'm right there with you on that. But I do want to look at some of these other names we've been seeing. There's reports that the Suns are looking to interview 3 different assistants: the Bucks' Charles Lee, the Kings' Jordi Fernandez, and the Grizzlies' Darko Rajakovic. But anyways, Lee, he spent 9 seasons with Budenholzer in both Atlanta and Milwaukee. Fernandez was a lead assistant with Mike Brown in the Kings this past season, but he spent the previous 6 seasons with Mike Malone in Denver. And then Darko, he was on Monty's staff during the 1920 campaign. So there are some Suns ties there. And we are hearing that the Suns' current associate head coach, Kevin Young, who was moved up in 2021 after Willie Green left, they're interested in talking to him and seeing if he might be a possible candidate as well. He coached in the G League from 2010 to 2016. And then he spent 5 years as an assistant in Philly before coming over to Phoenix. So, Chris, any of those guys catching your ears or your eyes? Any kind of interest out of those?
Not really. I mean, like I was saying, it doesn't seem like there's a very rich market for head coaches out there. Honestly, I'm just very hesitant to hire a first-time head coach with the position I feel like we're in right now. I mean, we have a very short window with Kevin Durant, and especially if we decide to bring Chris Paul back, or I don't even know if it's our choice really. Those guys are getting old, man. We probably only have 1, maybe 2 solid years from those two guys. Kevin Durant, I feel like, could go either way. He could probably squeak out 3 to 5 more if he really wanted to. But yeah, man, I just don't know. I'm very nervous to take on an assistant coach and give him all that responsibility. I want a proven guy in here right now. I mean, when you were listing off assistant coaches there, I had flashbacks to Monty's predecessor, Igor Kokoshkov, and we all know how that ended. I mean, it seemed great on paper. He was an assistant here and there and on all these different staffs. But when he was finally handed the clipboard, we all saw what happened. Granted, different team, different time, but it just, obviously he was a one and done coach. It didn't work. So it's not to say that the same is going to happen for those guys either. I mean, obviously everyone has to get their start and their first chance somewhere, but I don't want it to be here. Not right now, not at this time.
The window of opportunity is right now. I am 100% with you. So we got to have somebody who has a proven track record of working with high profile guys within this league. And when you work with higher profile guys, you have to be able to juggle their personalities as well.